So let's talk about the amygdala's role in a narcissistic relationship. And I really think it is on both the narcissist and the victim's level. Both the amygdala has a big role to play. This is the fear center, if you didn't know it. Whereas a normal relationship, it's a more just easier, slower burn, more of a mutual opening of the pineal gland. The amygdala addiction is something that gets increasingly relevant as the relationship, as the dance with the devil matures, right? So initially, in the mind of the narcissist, they have a infatuation with you, which they're going to call love. They're mirroring you in order to get you addicted. So there's plenty of like dopamine attraction, which it's not immediately going to mirror a parent relationship for a an empath, but it is the means to an end, right? It is the means to give you hope before the torture really begins and the kind of mutual amygdala activation begins, right? So after the honeymoon period, now comes the dance of the amygdala, right? So the narcissist actually gets excitement from the slow, gradual devaluation, right? So when the empath is thinking, well, we have such a great relationship, this could go on forever, we can mutually grow, etc., the narcissist will begin to have doubts, right? So that just beginning, maybe I want to be with you, maybe not. And like every week, let's say, that's about a 1% decrease. And so what the point is to get you more afraid because they are getting high off that fear of them of you losing them. And they want to make that last as long as possible. And they've chosen you because maybe you have emotional thinking, right? So maybe you're easier to control, you're easier to fool and convince. Maybe you've had a narcissist relationship in your past, and so there's a deep trauma they can activate and use for their own aim. So if you were a child of a narcissist and like a scapegoat, then and all your life was spent um, you know uh, cowing to a narcissist for your survival, right? So if that was like a major multi-year part of your childhood, at that point you're now trained to associate your survival with the satisfaction of the narcissist. So the narcissist can actually tap into that. They have a kind of a sixth sense for unhealed trauma, and they'll use that as another to get another hook in to make the supply last longer, right? So as soon as the devaluation begins, a normal healthy person would leave the relationship, right? Normal people can be um, fooled by a mirroring relationship, a mirroring versus like a normal expression, depending on their awareness level, depending on the sophistication of the narcissist. But it takes a deep trauma bond to put up with a incremental, sustained devaluation. So the longer this lasts, the more you try hard to serve them, to be devoted to them. They get little fuel hits from that, right? It's an energetic hit. The more you're devoted, the more work you do, and also the more humiliation you endure at their expense, right? So, you know, they can cheat on you and admit it under the guise of, hey, I'm being honest. But really, they want to say, oh, I want to feel the power of your humiliation, the power of your devotion to me beyond, me doing whatever I want. So that is the dysfunctional nature of the narcissist, because it's pure amygdala in their part too. They like to run the risk of, just like any kind of daredevil, risk death in order to get that excitement. They risk the relationship as opposed to like mutual building. They would rather risk its destruction to get high off of it. And that's basically it. So, and there's also just a superficiality to it, right? So, I noticed that it was like a flavor. I was just a flavor of fast food, right? It was just one flavor of many to sample, and other people are just there to be sampled. So it's shallow, it's degenerate, and it's just a function of this one dimensional, this hyper, probably if you did an MRI scan, enlarged amygdala, from childhood and replicated because that's all you know. The downside, of course, is this is not a natural way to relate to another person. This is a addiction to adrenaline on both accounts, really, right? So you have the fear, the constant roller coaster. There's an intensity to that the empath gets addicted to as well. It's a kind of Stockholm syndrome, and they are addicted to the torture. And it's ultimately unsustainable, but new fuel supply feels more sustainable than your fuel supply. And so in their mind, you destroyed the relationship. You must be punished, but don't leave. Your job as the former intimate partner, primary source, is to remain on standby. It's your job to remain in the toy box, in the stable, because secretly, deep down, they know that their new intimate partner, primary source, no matter how infatuated they are, will become stale themselves, even though they hope not. But they will, because they never really look within, to their own addiction, to their own dysfunction. They don't think anything's wrong with them. They move from one addiction source to another. Like it is like a heroin addict that's forgot what being normal is like, right? So that's all you're identified with is heroin, and you get more. You look for it more and more, and its potency becomes less and less, and it takes more and more of a toll on your life. And this is the parasitic nature of narcissism. And as base level, it is amygdala milking. And it is a PG version of what the satanic ritual of the amygdala activation is, which is torture of children, right? They find the most innocent. And narcissists like very, very like innocent or naive, idealistic people, so they target them. But the elites actually take that to an extreme. They find innocent children, they torture them, and then they harvest their enlarged amygdalas. And they take them as, ambrosia. They take them as a drug. They get high off the adrenaline. That is a, X-rated version of what a normal everyday narcissist does. This is why it's on a scale of Satanism. And who knows in their lifetime whether that breaks or not, whether that evolves or devolves, whether that intensifies or not. But it is a flavor of that same behavior. That all being said, don't be a Stockholm Syndrome victim. Be aware of this amygdala adrenaline rush that is associated with the roller coaster of the narcissist. Don't invite it. Don't look for it. Recognize the incremental devaluation, and stay away from it. Thanks for listening.